Trish Bertuzzi is the best-selling author of the Sales Development Playbook and founder of the Bridge Group, Inc. Her team at the Bridge Group has worked with over 240 business-to-business technology companies, helping them to unleash the power of inside sales. They are on a mission to help technology companies build repeatable pipeline and accelerate growth with inside sales.
Now, fantastic. Well, welcome everybody. We're so excited to have Trish Bertuzzi, expert in all things sale, but specifically in a topic we want to touch on today, which is sales development. So this will be pretty informal. We've got some questions that we want to ask Trish, and we're diving right in. So Trish, to begin, books has come out, the Sales Development Playbook.
Yep.
One of the questions that are often asked to people is, should you even have a sales development team? Would love to hear your feedback to that question.
So, and I talk about this in the book, it depends. I mean, obviously, I'm a proponent of sales development teams. If you have a team of closers that needs more at-bats, then most assuredly, you need a sales development team. Or if you have a team that's better off focusing at the back of the funnel, you really want your team focusing on closing, absolutely, then have a front-end sales development team focus on qualifying opportunities. But having said all that, there are some companies, SaaS companies primarily, that don't like that transition. They think it interrupts their sales process. Shopify is one, as a matter of fact. And so they don't have a sales development team. So you really have to look at your market, your buyer, your sales process, what your AEs need. Most of the time, I'm going to say yes to sales development, but not all of the time.
Got it. Is there anything, one thing I feel like sometimes people bring up, and you mentioned some of these attributes, like a way more strategic sale. So let's say I've got a sale that is, it's $1 million or it's $500,000 plus, and it's like a 9-month sales cycle versus like a $1,000 sales cycle, 2-call close. Those would be just 2 attributes you'd say, those are big attributes that you consider having or not having an SDR. Is there a right or wrong in transactional versus strategic, or just depends still?
I would say it still depends, but I would also say that sales development is an umbrella term, right? It covers a lot of different functions. So how someone with a commodity or transactional sale would use the team would be dramatically different from someone who's selling into the enterprise. I mean, I think that's why account-based sales development and account-based marketing is reemerging as a strategy, because we're realizing that in the enterprise, you got to do something different with your sales development team, and it takes a lot more thought, partnering with marketing, partnering with the AEs.
Perfect. Let's dovetail off of that, because one of the next questions was about account-based prospecting. It's a buzzword, might be strong, but it's out there, and it is a different methodology, isn't it? I mean, to the listeners, how would you describe account-based prospecting? How does that differentiate from what we were doing 10 years ago?
Well, actually, we were doing it 10 years ago. So, I mean, if you've ever sold strategically, see, SaaS screwed everyone up.
Yeah.
SaaS kind of made it seem like everything was easy peasy mac and cheesy, right? When in the olden days, 10 years ago, 15 years ago, everything was strategic because all technology was being sold to innovators and early adopters.
Yeah.
So back in the day, there was this thing called enterprise accounts or named account strategy or whatever the case would be. So it was account-based marketing, account-based sales development where, and I love it because I think it's brilliant, because in that instance, you look at the account as the opportunity and not the contact. I think that's where we go awry so often, is we get in a lead from John Smith at Acme and we're like, oh, John Smith is my lead. No, he isn't. Acme is your lead. Mm-hmm. So I think we're going back to being less sort of prospecting via cannonade of activity and really starting to think through things again.
It becomes that more strategic motion. Okay.
Yeah.
So in this space, in the sales development space, a number of challenges. I'm sure you could probably list off, hundreds, but one that's often brought up is this hiring, trading, onboarding thing. And I know you've got kind of the playbook around it. First of all, why is it a challenge? And then what's the 1 or 2 tips that you'd say people need to have on their radar to solve it?
So it is a huge challenge because the demand for the talent has so far outpaced the supply of the talent. But the interesting thing is, I think we're going to start to see a sea change. I just read this really great article this morning. It was in Business Week or something like that, about how companies are starting to lay off. Companies have overhired to get to growth, right? So they've thrown bodies at the problem and all the expense associated with that. They're now realizing the pain of doing so and are starting to lay off. So, I mean, I don't think we're going to hit a trough, but I think we're going to come to a level area where people are going to start to be much more intelligent about their hiring, and they're going to retain people by putting the right processes for onboarding in place, and they're going to develop learning cultures, and they're going to look at their attrition in a different way. A huge section in the book and all this.
Because it's kind of been a little bit of a mess right now, right? Because of so much growth, maybe in SaaS in particular.
Yeah.
I've just brought on random people, random processes. Now that we move from growth more to profitability, I got to tighten my belt. I got to get sound practices. I got to get sound processes.
You do. You absolutely do. Yeah. We used to have a saying with our clients, you know, we're like, don't rush to hire, because bad breath is not better than no breath at all. Like sometimes an empty seat will cost you less than a bad hire.
Yeah.
So
we sometimes don't realize that. So if you're facing that challenge of, you know, hard or difficult hiring or training, onboarding, retention, what is the takeaway? What's one or two takeaways you say, hey, you got to do this and that right?
I think you need to really think through what are the skills that you're looking for in your candidate. I mean, curiosity is huge. You know, the ability to be self-educated. I mean, you want to hire people that are willing to go and learn their craft on their own, that you don't have to baby step the whole way. I think so. We have to look at candidates differently. It used to be, hey, I'm just going to hire some young, hungry kids and let them pound on the phones. Well, our poor buyers were the ones that got pounded, right? So I think that's starting to change. And the other thing I think is starting to change is people are really thinking about retention. What does it take? You know, I think an average SDR is in the role 12 months. What? They're not even ramped till month 5. Yeah. So, you know, how do we keep them in the role longer? And there's a lot of different ways you can do that. That helps them still continue to advance their career, but doesn't necessarily say, I'm taking you out of this to put you over in the AEs, you know, micro promotions, you know, it's that whole up versus out scenario.
So there's going to have to be a little bit of a mind shift here.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Because it needs to be different than it is.
Yep.
So another big thing out there, I think, in the space is obviously the technology. You're hearing words like stack all the time. If it's even an SDR stack or a sales development stack, I don't know how new of a buzzword it is, but it's definitely out there. People know that in this type of role, it can often be a little bit more, maybe not automated, but there's a place probably more for technology than there is in other areas. And so I think people often go here. What should people be thinking about? And obviously you don't need to name names, but what are some of the gaps that technology can fill in this world of a sales or sales development stack?
There's so much that can be automated in the sales development process. I mean, how data is delivered so that people can create custom messaging, how they receive information, how they pace their communication with their buyers, the different media they're using, how the buyers are reacting to all that, how if you're fortunate enough to have large groups of leads, how to prioritize those. I mean, there's so many things that can be automated. Yeah, but let me say this, and I've said this before. You just don't want to automate the human out of what you're doing, right?
Yeah.
Because we're starting to do that. It isn't just science. It isn't just push a button or click something or, you know, just have your phone robo-dial. Thank God Super Tuesday is over with all that, by the way. But it's, you know, it's the human. You need to be human. You need to interact with your buyers. And so you just got to be careful. There's a fine line between over-automating your team and stripping it of the human aspects. And I think that's when a lot of companies lose, when they think it's
I've
just
heard
math.
you start to use words like personalization. And I don't know if that fits in here, but, you know, automation or, you know, automating versus personalizing are two things you got to kind of be.
That's an excellent point, Gabe. Yes.
And I think that's probably the right direction. How do we get more personalized? Because we're trending away from that. So, well, Trish, I got to admit, you only had 2 swear words, I think, during this session.
Which is pretty much a miracle for me. But you did promise me you would edit.
Yeah.
So I'm feeling good about it. I only actually recognized 1, so I do have a problem, but I'm going to leave that in your hands. Yeah.
Well, I think we've come to the end here. This was meant to be short and brief and right to the point. I think we hit 3 big topics, you guys. So again, should you have an SDR, some of the main challenges in that role of sales development, and then thinking about that technology stack are definitely 3 areas that I think are coming out. Trish gave some expert advice. Thank you so much, Trish, and I hope everybody enjoyed the show.
Thanks so much.